Kia ora, bula, kia orana, talofa, maloelele, and welcome to another week of Tupalangi in a Pisanisi pod. My name's Glenn Murphy. I'm based here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, on my own little Pacific island of Waiheke, and I'm thrilled to be here for another week with Dave, telling stories about business in the Pacific.
And talofa telelava. My name is David Dewar. I'm based in Rarotonga, Cook Islands, but previously have been based in Suva, Fiji. I've been working with Glenn for the past 5 years, helping New Zealand businesses understand and make the most of the opportunities that are available in the Pacific region. It's a wonderful part of the world, something I'm very attached to, and it's fantastic to be working with Glenn now, telling some of those stories through this weekly podcast.
And in this episode, we have the privilege of welcoming Rachel Afeaki-Tamoepeau onto the show. And Rachel was recently one of the co-leaders on the Prime Minister's community mission, I guess it was, covering business, police, customs, community, people to people, that went to Samoa and Tonga. And so we're thrilled to be able to have a talanoa with Rachel about what happened on that mission, but also about her background and the wonderful things that she's involved in. But before we go to that talanoa, Dave, how's your week been? What's been going on?
Yeah, well, what a big week. I've certainly been watching very closely what happened with the Prime Minister's mission in Samoa and Tonga, Glenn. You'll probably be a bit relieved that I didn't suggest that you try and pronounce the Prime Minister's new Matai title that he was bestowed when in Apia. But for the record, it is Tuisi na Vema Ulu Moto Otua, which is a very prestigious Matai title. Well, they all are, of course, but this one bestowed by the village of Apia in Samoa. So, but in the meantime, of course, living the dream here in Rarotonga, Cook Islands. I've finished most of my assignments for the first term of my MBA with Auckland University, and now my main priority this weekend is cooking all of the sausages for my son's under 10s and under 8s rugby league tomorrow, assuming they get to play.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you cooked them well, Dave. And I guess probably like me, you had a bit of FOMO this week in terms of not being on that mission. But that's why it was so good to kind of talanoa with Rachel and sort of vicariously live the mission. I had an interesting week, Dave. I took Thursday off from my day job and did a shoot at Piha for my favourite fish oil brand of BioH. I am a brand ambassador. So just giving a bit of a plug-in for BioH, some of the purest fish oil you'll ever find.
Anyone who's been looking in on the show and can see how young your complexion is looking can attribute that to the BioH that you've been taking recently. But you were having to run along the beach, right? Is there anywhere we can see the footage of this?
I hope not. But it was probably the first run I've done in about 10 years, and they. So I did say to the guy filming, I said, whatever you do not criticize my running style. Anyway, Dave, let's move on to the matter of the week, which was the Prime Minister's mission, and let's have that talanoa with Rachel.
Well, we were talking last week about the big news of the week, which was, of course, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon's trip to Samoa and Tonga. And we mentioned as part of that we knew that he was being accompanied by a very high-powered business delegation from New Zealand. And we're extremely fortunate to be joined today by Rachel Afeaki-Tamoepeau. And Rachel is a name that will be well known to anyone who has been working in New Zealand and Tonga in the business community, because among the many hats that Rachel wears is the chair of the New Zealand Tonga Business Council. And so Rachel was one of the co-leads of that delegation, alongside another very prominent and famous New Zealander who we'll get her to reveal later on. But it really is a privilege to be joined by Rachel today. We're very grateful for you making the time, and malo lele to you, Rachel.
Malo lele, kia ora, David and Glenn. Lovely to be here with you both this morning.
And while we were talking a bit earlier, you mentioned that you're dialing in from quite a special place in Auckland, and I wonder if you wanted to give a bit of a shout out to the location.
Yes, I'm currently sitting at Tupuanga Cafe, Community Cafe in Mount Eden, which is just around the corner from our family home in Auckland, and it's actually run by my sister, my brother-in-law, Emelina Afeaki Mafaleo and Albert Mafaleo. And it's really nice to be here. And I thought it'd be quite nice to come here with the background of the map of the Polynesian Pacific behind me. And, it's a great place, great meeting place for many people who come here, particularly in Auckland, who want to come together and meet here, businesses, communities. They come here and have their meetings, their talanoa. And I think the best part is that the coffee that's served here is exported from Tonga. And so it is Tupuanga coffee, and it's great coffee. Look at me doing
Awesome.
it. But also, they also sell other Pacific products here. So, and great pineapple pie. So if you're in town from the island across the shores here, just mention David's name and you'll get half price. Awesome.
Given how much pineapple pie he eats, I don't know that your sister's going to thank you for making a discount offer like that. We usually invite our guests who come on the show to start by telling us a little bit about themselves. So if you wouldn't mind kind of kicking things off by telling us about your own background as a business leader from Tonga and New Zealand, and how it was that you found yourself to be co-leading that delegation with Prime Minister Luxon this week.
Awesome, David. Hey, thank you both, Glen and David, for the invitation to join your Tū Pālangi guys podcast. I love it. It's fantastic. Well,
Thank
born, raised, and educated in New Zealand, and I went on to University of Auckland and did a Masters of Commerce with a major in Marketing and Management and International Relations. And it wasn't probably until my involvement with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, with Auckland 18, when New Zealand was hosting the Rugby World Cup back in 2000 and I'm going to say 11, that we had founded the New Zealand Tonga Business Council. And so I've always been involved across community and leadership. And had formed this council, which has now been going for 15 years. And we're probably one of 5 New Zealand Pacific business councils that are operating in New Zealand. And so the role of the New Zealand Tonga Business Council is to promote and encourage two-way trade between Tonga and New Zealand, and actually just really strengthen relations between the two nations. And so I currently chair a number of organizations and sort of across sectors such as energy, economic development, business development. I currently chair the New Zealand Tonga Business Council, the Waikato Pacific Business Council, Well Energy Trust, and I sit on a number of other community boards in particular. So I thoroughly enjoy being part of governance, and also really love being a part of a strategy or a plan to advance Pasifika across New Zealand and its different spheres, and working with government, working with business, and working with community.
Hey, Rachel, as an ex student of Waikato University, I was very interested to hear about the Waikato Pacific Business Network. All right.
Yeah.
Must
And
be a good man.
And I'm actually heading there this evening for dinner with our Prime Minister. So at the newly built PA. The Waikato Pacific Business Network was formerly relaunched in 2018, and it really we are there to work closely and support and build Pacific-owned businesses in the region. And so back then, we did not have any numbers or data about the number of businesses that operate across the Waikato region. And right now, we're currently working with, and what we've identified is about 200 plus Waikato Pacific owned businesses. Many of them are small to medium size, and we have probably a handful that are currently exporting from the South Pacific Islands into New Zealand.
I've been talking a bit recently with Sarah Leo at Auckland Council, Rachel, and last year they did a lot of work to collect data on Pacific businesses in the Auckland region as well. So we're hoping to have Sarah on the podcast at some point in the coming months.
Wonderful. Sarah's a very good friend. We've known each other for many years, and we were recently at a meeting with Pacifica stakeholders, with the Ministry of Pacific Peoples in Auckland. And so we will connect and have a conversation. And I did review that report that came out of Auckland in regards to Auckland's Pacific economy. And already I've had people talking about what does the Waikato, what does it look like in the regions, and how the Pacific economy in the regions contributing as a whole to the economy. And surprisingly enough, Glenn, it's actually very significant. It's significant, and so it's ensuring
Yeah.
that the narrative is received to the right people in the right places. They Yeah, well, I also want to note that the Pacific Business Village was actually established about 3 to 4 years ago, and the Pacific Business Village actually works specifically with Pacific businesses in the region. So we operate out of Northland, not the Waikato, because there is a Northland Business Network, Pacific Business Network, Waikato, Tauranga, Wellington, and Christchurch, and then of course there's the Cook
Wow.
Islands, the SIDANs, the Cook Islands Investment Development Agency, and we have the Pacific Hub that operates out of Auckland. I think this is going to be the year that you will see and hear more about the Pacific Business Village across New Zealand, Aotearoa.
Well, let's have a think about maybe profiling that in a bit more detail on one of our next episodes. So open invitation to talk about that at another time, Rachel. But I guess just returning to the delegation that took place this week, you were obviously one of the co-leads on that, and I wonder if you wanted to just give us a bit of a sense of who some of the people were that were on that delegation with the Prime Minister from the business community, but also some of the other Pacifica leaders that were on it with you.
Yeah, I think, it was such an honour to be invited by the Right Honourable Christopher Luxon to join Pacific Mission 26. And even more so, it was a real, I guess it was a real privilege to also be asked to co-lead the business and community delegation with Severe Sir Michael Jones. And everyone knows Sir Michael Jones. And the I think I want to say there was probably about 21 delegates that made up the Pacific Business and Community Delegation. And it was a wonderful cross section of leaders who represented the aviation sector. We had the CEO of Air New Zealand, CEO of Chatham Airways, Managing Director for Muck Canal Dow, who are currently building the bridge in Tonga and doing a lot of infrastructure work. We had Dame Tuila Percival, paediatrician in the health sector. We had also Reverend Siddhartha Tamoepeau Vekune, and also John Piso, who's a who's a wonderful businessman that operates out of Wellington. Saya Latu from Trowell, who's absolutely involved with the circular green economy and doing a lot of work bilaterally between Tonga and New Zealand. I think, and we also had the lovely young 2025 New Zealand of the Year, Eti, who is the AI Fibre Fale leader. So it was a wonderful cross section of leaders ranging from business entrepreneurs in communities, but also at the same time, there to discuss some very important issues between Tonga, Samoa, and New Zealand. And, first and foremost, highlighting how deep our relationship is across the three nations, not just in business and in government relations, but also with family ties. I don't know if you knew this, but the population in Tonga is about 104,000-ish people. The population of the Tongan diaspora in New Zealand is about 100,000. Come on. And then in
Wow.
Samoa, it's about 200,000 plus Samoans in Samoa. But here, the growing population of the diaspora in New Zealand is 200,000. We were also joined by the New Zealand NGOs, armed forces, and New Zealand police and custom agencies to also combat transnational crime. So, we had some important conversations that had to be had, but fantastic to see the role of New Zealand in supporting Tonga and Samoa in such areas. Yeah, it was, people think we go on these missions and it seems a bit glorious, David, don't they? But actually, we're in there short and we go hard and we leave. So we were in Samoa for 2 nights, and it was all on. And then, meetings, back-to-back meetings. And then, of course, we go off to Tonga. We're there for 1 night, 1 day, all on. We went over there as individuals. Some of us knew a few of us. We came back friends, came back excited that what's next? What are we going to do? What can we do together?
You've talked about the kind of diversity in the group that was on the mission. Of course, on this podcast, we like to really focus on the good business stories. What was there anything in particular that came out of the out of the delegation from a business point of view that you think is important to comment on?
Yeah, absolutely. From a business point of view, well, I think first and foremost, what does come out is if I refer back to the delegates, it's the connection there, the networking, and the ability to work together. Coming back and what more can we do? But going over to Samoa and to Tonga, we actually saw the contribution and the support that New Zealand has to each respective government. We actually saw, for example, in Tonga, I had the uh, pleasure of hosting the business session, doing business in Tonga. And so I was really fortunate to be able to moderate a conversation just following an address by Minister Shane Reti, talking about the significance between the two nations, but also an address from the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Tonga, Te Moaki, who provided the landscape of what the investment opportunities and appetite looks like for Tonga, and an invitation to New Zealand to come in and also to have a let's be real lens about what it looks like when you want to come in and do business in Tonga. And I had the pleasure of interviewing not only Te the governor for the Reserve Bank, but also Tapu Banove, a well-established businessman in Tonga who owns a number of businesses, including Tonga Water and others, and Viliami Takao, significant background in tourism. No, but going back to the point of business, a lot of activity happening in Thailand, in Samoa, a lot of opportunity. I mean, what we did here was that at least 80% of imports come into both island nations respectively, and they come in. So, it does make you wonder how businesses on the ground are faring in regards to producing and looking to increase productivity. I'll probably say we were fortunate to hear from the senior economist from Samoa who provided the landscape in Samoa. And it looked really, and the numbers were very good. And what we did here is both nations were being very cautious and mindful of what is happening globally and really monitoring how they can ensure that there is stability in the nations.
And with that work, and you talked about the workshop in Tonga, but also the presentations you saw in Samoa, was there any key kind of lessons that you took out of that in terms of business in those nations that you think are worth people taking on board?
Oh, well, I think one thing for sure is that there's ample opportunity for New Zealand businesses to go into the island nations um, to set up your business, and particularly, like as I mentioned, um, Tongan and Samoan business owners here to actually increase their working relations with those nations, but also at the same time to work very closely with our agencies such as New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and to find out more. Talk to customs. And I think one thing for sure that the New Zealand Tonga Business Council will look to include in our annual plan of activity for 2026 will be, let's have someone from customs come and speak, like a group of people come and speak about what it's like to do business in Tonga. And this is what we heard from the Reserve Governor of Tonga. He did say, be mindful and be more discerning, and knowing that when you're coming into Tonga, we're not a big nation. Samoa's not a big nation, and quite often people who are wanting to distribute product and sell product, they want numbers. But just note that there are so many other returns that you get doing business in the islands, which can be a lot more, probably less to do with profit. But profit's good, but more to do with holistic well-being.
That's such a great point, Rachel. I really like the focus on some of those connections with government representatives that are there to support business as well. Did you see any particular sectors or areas that you think might be kind of ripe for a bit of investment or a bit of engagement from the New Zealand or Australian or other business communities across the region while you were on that trip?
Well, I think what we've come to know about our island nations is that agriculture and fisheries is a significant sector, and I think we're really fortunate to hear from Trail Group CEO Saila too, who was on our delegation. He spoke about sustainable practices and how innovative approaches can help strengthen local agribusiness and protect the environment. And I think as a result, New Zealand's partnership in training, technology, and market access can help growers boost productivity and build long-term resilience. There's a shortage of the trades. So education and vocational trade is going to be very important going forward. And also the introduction of what are the implications of AI on such sectors where, labor has been very, it's been so accessible for our island nations because we're very good at working with our hands. But then, the introduction of technology and AI, what will what will be the adverse and positive impacts? But also, you can't do business if you don't have decent aviation, to get goods and services
Mm,
back in. Of course, with what's currently happening in the world, the cost of fuel is skyrocketing. We're already seeing the adverse impact on our families and businesses. So what does that
yeah.
mean with the shipping? Shipping of goods coming through. I think there's so much going on, David, that I think people are just going to be somewhat overwhelmed about what is the priority? Is it the economy? Is it health? Is it education? Is it climate resilience? I think, but at the same time, Samoa and Tonga are in good positions with New Zealand in regards to receiving the right support. So yeah, and I think so. Young nations. Another one is the young nations. Um, Most of them, the people in these islands, and just like here in New Zealand, Pacific Island population is significantly young compared to the national,
Mm.
and so therefore we're looking at future workforce. How we're preparing the young people to be ready to be available to work in the workforce that's going to be required of each of us in, say, 20 years, and a real need to see more, I'm going to say, Pacifica diaspora consultants, involved in more projects across the Pacific region. And so I think a real view of people capital is going to be an important
What
factor that we need to look towards.
What a great suggestion. And I think if you think about the composition of that delegation and some of those incredible people that were on it, yourself included, but also, you've mentioned the impact of the marine trade. And of course, Michael Jones is also, the head of Matson Shipping. You had Nikhil Ravishankar in terms of, Air New Zealand and that air connectivity. But also you mentioned Eti as well, and the amazing work that she and Julia have been doing with Fiberfale.
Absolutely. I think Eti, she was an absolute rock star when we went to Nuku'alofa Government Middle School. And she just really captured not only the students, but also I think all the adult delegates who were there too. And I think we're going to see more people who are going to decide to say, well, actually, I want to start my own business. What can I do? What am I actually good at? And so we see that with Eti. She was really amazing, and she was able to gift books. Eti Fixes the Glitch or something. That's her book that she gifted to the school, and the kids loved it, and that's it. And that's what we saw was a real sense of deep connection for many of those on the delegation, but also those who are not of Tongan or Samoan descent. Like I said, we came off this mission. We started as individuals and came off family and really connected and excited for what's ahead. Michael and I had the we were asked to sort of welcome the delegation on the first day of breakfast in Samoa, and we both spoke about our connections back to the islands. And Michael shared about his connection as a New Zealander, a Samoan, and my connection is that my father, my great grandmother is full Samoan, and so she's full Samoan, and she's married to my great grandfather, who's a New Zealander, James Hosier Herbert Brown. They go to Tonga Ha'apai, and they settle there because he's a trade merchant. He has children, and one of them is my grandmother, Emmeline. She's half Kiwi, half Samoan. Remember this. She meets my grandfather, Joseph Afeaki, who's full Tongan. They get married and they have 12 children. Come on. They have 12 children, 6 boys, 6 girls. My father's number 6. So, and then as a result,
Wow.
because of my grandma, she's a New Zealander, she can bring the 12 children over. So my father ended up going to school at Penrose High then. But I mean, this is the icing on the cake. My great grandfather, who was a full Kiwi, his grandmother is full Māori.
Oh,
Te ono
Wow.
o Whakatā Whakatane, therefore we whakapapa te Ngāti Awa. So then,
wow.
what can I say? I've got 4 sons, and one can play for the All Blacks, one can play for Tonga, one can play for Samoa, and if why not? One can play for the New Zealand Māoris.
Yeah.
And so, I'm first generation New Zealand born, but actually, I could say I'm a third generation New Zealander as a result of my great grandfather.
My goodness, you were truly the perfect person to be one of the co-leads on that mission, weren't you?
Yeah, so no, it was a real blessing.
With mention of Etaroa, who has an amazing sense of humour, invariably on these missions, there are, 2 or 3 funny things that happen. Is there anything that you can share with us on this podcast that was a humorous event that occurred?
Oh, well, hey, if you know the Islanders, hey, we laugh at everything. You know, you know, uh, everything's funny. You go on buses. So in Samoa, we're on like bus 1, bus 2, bus 3. And of course, all of a sudden, there's a bit of, you know, competition about who's got the best bus. And so we're traveling along too, and we're looking at the bus, and we're bus 2, business and community. And then the bus behind us with Michael Jones, And I could look at the back and said, hey, look at Michael. It looks like he's filming. He's filming them, that they're practicing their singing. Sure enough, they were, we'd practiced the mili, and we could see them practicing. So they did. And they posted it on our WhatsApp page. They're going on bus 3. We're onto it. So then Kath goes, come on, team, let's go. And then we started, and we did something completely different. We didn't do the mili. We just did we like to move it. And then that was so funny. And we sent it back to them. But that was in Samoa. Then we got to Tonga. We were all on one bus. The joke was like, okay, one love, one bus, we're together. And so then we ended up singing together. I think another funny thing about Eti Roa, when she had told the children, S stands for science, and they all chanting science, chanting technology, chanting engineering, chanting mathematics. And then and she goes, remember, Eti fixes the glitch. And then goes, say glitch. And all the kids see glitch. We were on our bus to go to the next venue, and but the transmission broke down.
Oh.
And so we're all on the bus going, oh no. But then we had just started chanting the, science, technology on the bus, we were all cheering it. And then I think Rebecca from Internet said, it seems like there's a glitch in the transmission. And I turned around and said, can we all say glitch? And everyone turned to glitch. So again, those funny moments, you got to be there.
The one question I have from that, Rachel, is did Eti fix the glitch on the bus?
Unfortunately, no. We all had to disperse and go into different vehicles. So that was good. And it was great to be mixed in. But no, we didn't fix the glitch in the bus.
Hey, that's fantastic, Rachel. I'm conscious that you're going to be heading off with your family very soon to the ASB Polyfest, where the kids are participating in that. I wonder if, one final question would really be just one that we often ask our guests on the show around, what would your advice be, or your top tip be for businesses who might already be engaged in the Pacific or might not be, might be thinking about it? What would the top tip be for how to succeed?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, those who are wanting to do business in the islands, it's really important. And from out of New Zealand, I think it's really important to make some strong connections. First and foremost, and if there is a Pacific New Zealand business council that you would like to connect with. So, for example, you're interested in doing business in Tonga, connect with the New Zealand Tonga Business Council. If you're interested in doing business in Samoa, connect with the New Zealand Samoa Trade Commission or and the New Zealand Pacific Business Council. And also at the same time, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise and NFAT, Pacific Connections, also have some great connections there. It's one of the things that must be noted is that such councils also have good on-the-ground knowledge of what is happening in those respective island nations. But also, and so I think it's really important to and also go over to the islands if possible. So many people have asked, how do you get on a mission? How did you get on? How did I get on the mission? Um, to be really honest, I'm not too sure how I do get on the mission, but I think it's probably more a result of the work, and I guess the experience that I've actually had working across the
Yeah.
Pacific region, but also my engagement with Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, and I do have a passion to see Pacific businesses excel, not only in New Zealand but also in our South Pacific region. And so I think it's making the connections, join business councils. If you're going to do business in Tonga, join the New Zealand Tonga Business Council. We've got some amazing events happening this year. I know, another plug. But also, if you're doing business in Fiji, join the New Zealand Fiji Business Council. I'd like to say thank you for the New Zealand Tonga Business Council for supporting me and allowing me to go on this business council. Been awesome. And thank you, David, and thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Well, Rachel, I think anyone who's been listening to you today, talking about your history, your contribution, and your role, would have absolutely no doubt at all in their mind about why you would be leading a delegation, not just selected to be on it, but to lead it. And we are really grateful for you making the time to be on our podcast today. We've been talking with Rachel Afeaki-Tamoepeau, who is, among many things, the chair of the New Zealand Tonga Business Council. So, Rachel, malo aupito, and thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day in Tamaki Makaurau.
Oh,
Thank you, Rachel.
Mei taki, mata, David, and ngā mihi nui, Glenn. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Kia
Thanks,
ora.
Dan.
So, Dave, what an awesome talanoa with Rachel. Wonderful woman, and great to hear about that mission. It sounds like it went amazingly. I love hearing the stories about how everybody kind of comes together and enjoys each other's company and learns from each other on those missions. And I think, as you commented when we were talking about it last week and previewing it, how much that is a part of the value that people get from these missions is just chatting with each other and becoming mates.
I was actually on the last Pacific mission a couple of years ago with Rachel, and I had a good idea of what a great guest she was going to be on the podcast, given how well connected she is in Tonga particularly. But how amazing just to hear about the intergenerational connection that her family has in Samoa, New Zealand, back to Tonga, and then back into New Zealand now. So what an incredible lady, a wonderful business leader, and hugely valuable, I think, just to have her on our show, but also as part of that delegation this week.
Yeah, incredible whakapapa. And, Dave, one of the things I didn't mention, of course, is that I have seen a video from her co-lead, Xavier Sir Michael Jones, that he was commenting on how Kath is actually the best trade commissioner that has ever been in the Pacific. And I wondered how you felt about that.
Yes, well, Glenn, as a former trade commissioner in the Pacific, I did pick that up as well. But of course, I do work very closely with Kath, as have you, in the past and indeed currently. And so all I have to say is that Sir Michael is, of course, absolutely right. It really was a privilege to see some of the great efforts and connections that she's helped make as part of that. So good on you, Kath, and an incredible week, and well done.
And I think, Dave, you're very wise not to argue with Sir Michael Jones as well, just saying.
No, well, very wise to argue, not to argue with Sir Michael or with Kath. So,
true. Yeah. Good point. Yeah, I've been there before. Anyway, Dave, hey, one of the things that obviously is big in media everywhere right now is what's happening with the fuel supplies around the world. And we've talked a little bit about the impact of that situation on Pacific nations. And I know, Rachel made a few comments in her statements about that. And I know you've been doing a little bit of a look this week at what is happening with that across the Pacific.
Yeah, Glenn, no, it was, it's obviously the thing that everyone, I think, is talking about, certainly here in Cook Islands, where I'm based, but also reading the media from across the region. So one of the things that started at the start of the week, there were concerns raised in Fiji about possible runs on petrol stations and things like that, images of people queuing up and trying to fill up, and a real sort of concern, I think, out there in the public. And the government came out to say, look, don't worry, guys, we haven't got a fuel shortage, certainly at the moment. And, and they're right. Fiji is quite well positioned, I think, in terms of being actually a bit of a regional hub for fuel. So there is quite a lot coming into there. And as a lot of the people that I've spoken to this week have been at pains to say, is it's not an issue about shortage. So there is still fuel coming in. The way that fuel is bought and sold in the Pacific is, of course, largely dominated by the private sector. Two major fuel companies in Total and Pacific Energy, the only privately owned fuel business within the Pacific itself. It's headquartered in Tahiti, French Polynesia, owned by the Mu family. And ExxonMobil as well, which has a few fuel assets in the region. They predominantly buy fuel out of Singapore, as well as a little bit out of China, Japan, and Korea. However, there have been, concerns, I think, about some of the export restrictions that are creeping into the Chinese and Korean markets. And so Singapore remains the main hub that these businesses buy it from, similarly to New Zealand and Australia. Now, fuel's still going into Singapore and it's still coming out. The question really becomes what's happening to the price. So basically what happens with a lot of these markets across the region is that they have a regulated price. It's not set through, pure market supply and demand spot pricing. So when you're talking about petrol and diesel, which are two of the, the main three liquid fuels, aviation fuel, kerosene being the other one, those are largely regulated prices in places like Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, Cook Islands. They're set by either an independent commerce commission, competition authority, or a price board, and they're set with about a 2-month delay, and that also feeds off that's taken from an index set within Singapore, which is the means all Platts or MOPS index, and that also runs at a 2-month lag. Really, what we're seeing at the moment is prices are still they haven't shot up in the same way that we've seen in more kind of flexible private markets like New Zealand. So they're still actually running at that January, February index price. However, I think what we're likely to see is over the next week and month, those prices will start escalating. So one thing that people should look out for is the Fiji Competition, Commerce and Competition Commission, FCCC. They regulate the fuel price within Fiji, and I think they're due for their March-April determination on the 27th of March at the end of this month for April and May, and I think that'll probably be the first signal of some of those price rises. What we have seen is in the aviation fuel market, which is not as regulated, and so that fluctuates a lot more on spot pricing, and we've seen very, very significant rises across the Pacific already. Well, across the world, and the Pacific is no exception. And people have been talking about that rising up to around 60-70%.
Wow.
So very, very significant. But again, with that kind of month delay, so really it's around April, May, June is when we might start seeing some of those price increases being passed through. So the first message is book your travel now, because you'll already start seeing some of those price rises across the region, and probably with a fuel levy. In addition to ticket prices, so that you can see a bit more transparently where that additional cost is coming in. But
book your tickets now, that's the advice. So, look, Dave, on that note, this will be 2 Palangi and a Piece and Easy pod for this week, and we'll close it out. But what a great talanoa with Rachel, and awesome to get somebody fresh off the recent mission to Samoa and Tonga led by New Zealand Prime Minister. Great to hear how that went, how the group came together and what they got out of it, as well as hearing a little bit more about the fuel situation. No need to panic. However, prices are likely to rise pretty soon. So, Dave, great to be with you for another week, and would you like to read us out?
Yeah, thanks very much, Glenn, of course, and thank you so much again to Rachel Afeaki-Tamoepeau for joining us today. Of course, the best advice is to keep listening to this podcast, and we will be making sure to cover the evolving dynamics, not just of course in the fuel and energy costs, and of course some of the flow through implications into the likes of gas and fertilizer and plastics. For the meantime, please subscribe, tell all of your friends. We'd love to hear them tuning into the show. Anyone with an interest in Pacific business, you can get in touch with us through WhatsApp, Viber, LinkedIn, or of course our email address, 2.palagi, Palagi, @gmail.com. We're really enjoying getting the feedback about topics that you're interested in, things that you'd like us to cover, or some of the people that we can profile doing some amazing work across the region. However, in the meantime, that's it for another week. So that has been Tū Palagi in a Pisinisi pod for the week ending the 21st of March.